Welcome to another edition of Diamond Kings, the baseball YouTube talk show brought to you by the Sports-Kings Media Network. We were on vacation last week, so we're a little behind, but we've come back just in time to talk about some pennant races. We have a new commissioner in town. We'll talk a little bit about that, and maybe dab a little bit into postseason awards if we have time. My name is David Whitlock. I'm from scorching hot Houston, Texas. There's no relief from the heat these days. Can't wait for fall to get here. But can't get here too fast. We've still got a lot of baseball to play. And I'll be your panel moderator for today. We have a full cast of panelists joining us this week. But before we get to that, or as I introduce each of you, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the passing of actor and comedian Robin Williams. His death has left a mark upon all industries, including baseball. He was a big San Francisco Giants fan. So as I introduce each of you, if you want to offer a quick thought or remembrance of Robin and his work, Good Will Hunting had a lot of baseball ties to it. So any brief thoughts are welcome. So we'll start with Michael Prosser from Florence, South Carolina. How are you today, Michael?
It is good to be back. It felt like it was too long of a hiatus, Dave. But yeah, I don't think anybody was anywhere ready for the fact, for Robin Williams passing. I mean, that was just completely out of left field. I saw a friend of mine from the Navy posted on Facebook, and I quickly Googled it, and I was like, oh, it's a hoax here, and I posted the link to the hoax, and he's like, no, here's a link to the CNN article. Yeah. Oh my God, completely, I don't know. But I will say this: if I'm ever in a bar in Boston, and there's a Red Sox game on, and I have tickets to it, I'm going to leave the tickets with my friends, and I'm going to go tell them I got to go see about a girl.
Nice. I certainly agree with that. Yeah, it was crazy how it all broke, mostly on the internet, Twitter, and Facebook before the mainstream media. We'll talk to a new panelist joining us today. It's Lorenzo Mejia from Murrieta, California, representing the West Coast. Welcome, Lorenzo, to our little group.
Well, thanks a lot, David. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on this panel. As far as Robin Williams goes, our thoughts and prayers are out with his family. The one movie that really sticks out in my head was Mrs. Doubtfire. I was a kid when it came out, and I actually saw it at the drive-in theater with my parents back in early 90s, late 80s, something like that. But yeah, it was a great movie, but definitely our thoughts and prayers are out with his family.
Yeah, especially his wife and daughter and sons, but had to be a shock to them to lose a husband, a father, etc. Moving back to the Central Time Zone, we welcome back Leroy McConnell III. How are you today, Leroy?
I'm a bandwagon man. KC Royals. The thoughts on Robin Williams. It has been devastating. It was devastating to find out that he had the illness of Parkinson's. I go way back to Happy Days. I go way back to Mark and Mindy. Robin Williams is very underrated, and for somebody who can do stand-up and drama at the same time, it was an amazing feat to watch him. He will be truly missed.
I certainly echo those sentiments as well. And last but never least is Kevin L. Smith from Rochester, New York. How are you today, Kevin?
Doing good. Just hearing about Robin Williams is just sad. One of my favorite actors, one of my favorite comedians of all time, and watching movies like Jumanji and Patch Adams and Jack, Mrs. Doubtfire, all those great flicks of his. Just sad to see just a great man just go before unexpectedly, just like that. It's sad. Well, he will be greatly missed.
Yeah, no, I certainly agree with all of you. I'll just add one more thought. Is I really like Good Morning Vietnam. That was really a great movie, and the work he did for the USO, going out meeting the troops all the time, and some of the reflections. He would give those guys and girls that are serving our country, a good half hour to an hour break from their daily grind as they were battling for our freedoms, and he did it without provocation. He did it voluntarily, and he certainly will be missed. But we'll move back to baseball now, and since we last gathered, we have a new commissioner in baseball. And so what I'd like to do is ask you guys if you could be commissioner for a day, what would you change about the league if you could change anything or not change anything? You can reflect on what Bud Selig's done if you'd like, but Robert Manfred is now our commissioner, so we'll go in reverse order that we did last time. So we'll start with Kevin this time. Kevin Smith, you are commissioner of baseball. What is your first order of business?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like it's such a tough job to handle, to grasp, because like you're you're leading in charge of like the whole widespread of the league, and I don't know, I don't know why, but I know it's not safe, but I really want to bring back home plate collisions.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like that made it so exciting to see a runner like pile drive into a catcher.
That's not bad at all. We certainly had a lot of complaints about that rule. The implementation has been botched, to say the least. So I certainly think doing something about that would be a great idea. Leroy, you're commissioner for a day. What is your first order of business?
Put a salary cap in.
Salary cap, okay.
Set it at $100 million. If football can do it, we want the cap to be spread across Major League Baseball. Everybody can be able to keep their superstars and distribute all the stars throughout the league. I would like to see, since we're doing the interleague squad games, I would like to see National League play by the American League rules, and the American League stadium play by the National League rules. Also, I would like to take it, since basketball and football have the dimensions of the courts and fields are 100 feet and 94 feet. I think every baseball stadium should be the same feet across the board. If you got 314 feet down Yankee Stadium, it should be 314 feet down Texas Stadium. 400 feet straight away. You want 330 going down left. It should be all unanimous, so everyone can have the same playing field.
I got to tell you, good sir, you're batting 333 because I think two of those ideas are bad and one's good. I'll go with the DH rule, maybe swapping that in interleague games, but I think a salary cap would instantly drive a strike. It did in 1994. And come on, same dimensions. We can't have that. We need to have our Fenways, our Wrigley's, our Minute Maid.
Yeah, but you know, if you can hit 50 home runs, or if one place is the home run stadium, they should all be. You know, it's not fair that you should be able to. If it's a picture stadium like San Diego, and like Kauffman Stadium, you have a hard time hitting home runs out, and here you in Fenway, all you got to do is stick your bat out there and you home run. I don't think it's fair. So.
Duly noted. Moving over to Lorenzo. Lorenzo, if you were commissioner for a day, what would you do? What would be your approach?
The first thing you would have to do is the time of the game. The time of the game is just too long right now. 3.5 hours for an average game. It's just not worth it. The way you would do this is limit the amount of meetings the pitcher and the catcher have in between the innings. There's just a lot of things that happen throughout the game. That's a lot of dead time. And the way the youth is these days, we have to be able to speed up the game. That's why I think soccer is gaining ground in this country, because when you turn on a soccer game, you know you're going to watch it for no more than 2 hours. It's 2 hours and the game is done. I don't want a clock by any means, but we really need to speed up the pace of the game.
Give me a reason. How can you speed up the game? I mean, meeting between a pitcher and catcher, that doesn't make any sense. I mean,
no, because if you Go ahead. Because right now what's happening is when you have the pitcher and catcher go out, they don't count as official visits, so that takes time. When if the pitching coach or the manager comes out to the mound, they have to take the pitcher out. They're not going out there to talk strategy. That takes a long time. Another thing too is limit the amount of commercials going on during the middle of the game. I know that'll take away from sponsors' money, but 2.5 minutes in between innings, that's a long time. Another thing too, pitchers don't need to take 8 pitches in between innings. It takes way too much time. We don't need 3.5 hour games or even 4 hour games when the Yankees and Boston get together.
I certainly agree in the principle. It's been so difficult. They put in some rules, and you start to see the stopwatch being implemented by umpires with nobody on base. But then somebody gets on base and they step off and they throw over to first. I would think a limit of throwing over to first. I mean, any of these ideas, all of them have holes. It's like, you know, we can only throw over to first 2 times. Well, then after that, the runner knows they can't try to pick them off. So that doesn't work. You know.
Okay, I'm going to mention something really drastic here, and I'm probably going to get shot on my first webcast here. But what if we reduce the games to 7 innings?
Oh, no.
Show them, David. Show them.
Whoa.
Where's my
I think he just turned baseball to softball in like 2 seconds.
I don't know. We might win more games then. We wouldn't need.
Right. So some teams might like that. All right.
Either 7 inning games or reduce the schedule down to 144 games. That's another thing we can do.
Why
too.
144 instead of 154?
Used to be 150, didn't it?
Yeah, well, it used
Back
to
in
be
the day.
154 at one point.
154.
Before, okay.
All right, well, Lorenzo has some drastic ideas.
Show them, David.
Let's go over to Michael. He's been patient if he's still awake. You're commissioner for a day. What would you change?
I wouldn't. Well, yeah. How about this? I'm going to be maybe even more drastic than Lorenzo was. I'm going to implement a fantasy draft. Yes, I said it. It's going to happen. You start from the bottom. The Rangers. Let's see. Going by season statistics. Let's see. Season standings this year. The Rangers would probably get the first pick, followed by the Astros, and so on and so forth. And then you snake it. You snake it the whole way through, even things out. Your best pick is probably going, being in the 15th slot. Everybody gets a shot at somebody. You go through every roster. You fill out all 4 of your teams, and then boom, you go like that. Just like you do when you play on MLB 2K, whatever the hell it is you've got on whatever system you've got. There you go. There you go. You want even playing fields? You do a draft, a fantasy draft.
Thank goodness none of you people are being appointed commissioner.
Hey.
Now pitching for the Houston Astros, Clayton Kershaw.
There we go.
That could totally happen.
Leroy, you got something to say?
The draft. They have to sign their players. There's none of this, I don't want to sign him and he's going back into the draft. You draft a guy, you negotiate a contract, and that's it. None of this, he goes back to the draft crap, and next year you get the second pick. I don't like that. You get your man, and you negotiate a contract, and that's final.
Yeah, that certainly got biased. That is something that's going to change in the next collective bargaining agreement. The Players Association was furious with that. The Astros didn't gain that much by not signing Aiken, so...
They probably even made out like bandits for that, because, next year's draft's pretty stacked in the top end with pitchers, too.
Yeah, we can take him again next year, too. So, probably not going to happen.
He would have to fight a lot to get back into the top 10 for next year's class.
Yeah. I mean, that's
it's that good next year.
Yeah.
That kid from Duke is outstanding.
All right, well, let's move on. So now that each of you have been commissioner, or will never be named commissioner,
and have been fired on our first day.
That's right. I do appreciate your good ideas, actually. I think the new commissioner should think out the box. I think he's probably going to think in the box. He's kind of a right-hand man to Sealy. We probably won't see that much change. Maybe some tweaks here and there. I hope the game time issue is addressed, and I do think the draft will be addressed. Now let's get back to what's going on the field, and that is really, really tight and hot division races. It seems like every division's up for grabs, maybe except the American League East, but certainly anything could happen the rest of the year. So I'd like each of you to pick a division, your favorite division, the one that you like to talk about the most, and give me some thoughts on who you think is going to win, who you think is going to fade. Wild card contenders, we'll go with Leroy this time.
Well, I am bandwagoning with the Kansas City Royals right now because my Texas Rangers are in the toilet. I am from Kansas City, so I do have some allegiance. The Royals are shocking the American League Central. We've mentioned them earlier in the year. They have pitching, and they went out and got Josh Willingham, which, is a small signing, but, he's capable of the long ball, slugging the ball and helping produce some runs. We don't want to wake up the Detroit Tigers. Right now, I still think they're probably going to end up winning the division, but right now,
Tigers?
Yes. Because, they're in striking range, and I don't know how long Kansas City can hold on to or play some outstanding baseball. They probably shot their wad just like they shot their wad earlier in this year. Um, they have difficulty. Usually have difficulty playing against Cleveland. Cleveland's hanging around. Also, they're about 5 games back. So I figured that Detroit has the bats, and that's probably the reason why they'll end up taking the division. Hopefully, Kansas City can hold on to one of the wild cards. But it's exciting in Kansas City. We usually say, as long as Kansas City Royals keep us into the hunt until football season, they did a good job. So.
Well, they've certainly done that, and they're an exciting team to watch. I think their bullpen is better than most of the contenders, so I think that's a definite advantage for them. I do think the Tigers hitting is tough, and if Price could come around like he did yesterday and we'll start winning a bunch of games, it's going to be tough to hold off Detroit. It's going to be a fun division to watch. So let's go out to Kevin in New York. What are your thoughts? Pick a division, and what are your thoughts on the division race?
I have to go with the American League West. Just seeing the Angels and A's duke it out once again, just very enticing. Seeing those teams just fight for that division crown, and even though most likely one team will get the division champ and one will get the wild card, it's so exciting to see those teams just give it their all and see that the Angels just took a huge slice out of that big Oakland lead that they had a couple months ago and just be a couple points ahead of the A's in the division.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. I mean, neither team wants to be in a one-game playoff. That's such a crapshoot, especially if you end up playing a team like the Mariners, who could have a Felix Hernandez going to the mound, or a Tigers if they end up with a wild card and you're facing David Price. That's going to be a battle for the division. If I was Oakland, I'd be concerned at their trending style. They kind of did it for a while, made a couple acquisitions. Now they seem a little flat, and the Angels are just loaded.
I think that Cespedes trade really hurt them a little bit.
Exactly.
It might have. And Kelvin's not here today to tell us about how Yoenis Cespedes is the best player in baseball. So while we're talking about the West, I don't know if Lorenzo wants to touch on the West or another division, but he's got the Angels hat on. So what are your thoughts on the division race?
Well, the Angels are in first place as of today, so today is a great day. Now, as far as the Angels and the A's, I hate to say this, but I think the A's are going to overtake them. And in the one-game playoff, it'll be Angels and Mariners. So you'll have 3 teams from the AL West making the playoffs. I already requested my day off of work so I can go see the one-game playoff in Anaheim, whether it's probably the Angels and the Mariners. And the one thing that scares me, Felix Hernandez scares me, but Iwakuma, he owns the Angels. And the way he pitched against them in that ballpark, it's going to be a tough game for the Angels to win. Plus, you got to remember, too, just a one-game playoff, anything can happen. But unfortunately, I think the A's will win the division.
It could really go either way. I would pick the Angels based upon trending data, but again, this week's one thing. Next week, the Angels could lose 5 straight, and then the A's get hot. When the A's get hot and they're really raking, they're getting on base, they're a tough team to beat. So now we'll go over to Michael. Michael, what are your thoughts on the division? You got a National League division for us? You want to keep talking AL?
Well, for starters, I think Lorenzo is thanking me right now and my Braves for Julio Teheran going in and shutting down Oakland. Beautiful. However, I don't think it's going to happen tonight. We're sending Mike Minor to the mound, and Mike Minor's 4-7, and his arm looks like hell ever since he came off the disabled list. But let's face it, Mike Minor has never looked that good anyway. So, you know what? The NL East is pretty much it. I mean, it's always been a 2-team race. It's going to stay a 2-team race for the next 5 years, and there's nothing anybody can do about it because everybody else is either rebuilding or no. That's pretty much it. It's turning into the weakest division in baseball. It's going to be the Nationals and the Braves for the next 5 years. There's nothing anybody can do about it. Get used to it. So I'm going to talk about the AL East because Edwin Encarnacion is back.
Yes.
And when Edwin Encarnacion was healthy, Edwin Encarnacion was the driving force in that Blue Jays lineup. Not Joey Bats, not, Colby Rasmussen. It was Edwin Encarnacion. Edwin Encarnacion goes down, the Orioles stay hot, the Orioles take over. Well, guess what, guys? Edwin Encarnacion's back. Edwin Encarnacion has got some serious catching up to do. Don't be surprised if the Jays, make it interesting. I'm not saying they're going to win it. I still think Baltimore's got this. But don't be surprised if the Jays make it interesting.
Yeah, Baltimore's a surprising runaway team, and they're so far ahead. But
until they play Cleveland. I mean, Corey Kluber went out and just clobbered Baltimore the other night. Right, and then I don't know who pitched last night, but I think it was Wei Yin Chen. He looked like Wei Yin Choke. I mean, 6-0. I mean, that was awful. Cleveland, don't count them guys in the Cuyahoga out just yet. I mean, those Cleveland boys, they can still play. They may have traded away half their roster. They just got rid of John Axford. They still got some guys over there.
Yeah, Leroy, you had something to say?
Remember, this next weekend, Anaheim or the Angels and Oakland play. So,
there's 10 games left. Angels and A's are playing against each other 10 more times this season.
Right.
Nice.
There's still a long way to go.
And they're going to split 5-5.
You're probably right.
You know what? But in the wild card in that division, we speak about Seattle. Seattle is going to cause damage. Also, if you got count those 10 games between Angels and Oakland, but you got also put Seattle in there because they're going to have some say so also. They won't win.
And let's say Seattle ends up winning 7 of those 10 games against other people, while the Angels and A's are splitting 5-5. Next thing you know, you look at the sports page next morning, Seattle's in first place. That's something we haven't said in probably 15 years, maybe 20.
Since Griffey and A-Rod.
Yeah, and Randy Johnson back in what 97 was that?
95.
Yeah, so that's been almost 20 years, man. I mean, we haven't. Wow.
Now, but you think about it. I mean, okay, they split 5-5, no harm. But even a 6-4 either way is a 2-game swing in the standings, and the way that division is shaping up, 2 games could decide the whole thing. And the Indians are a team to watch. Corey Kluber, if you haven't seen him pitch, he's been on fire since the All-Star break. His numbers are right there with Felix Hernandez for the entire season.
Right.
You go look at him, a shade below in ERA, a shade below in record, but he's almost got 200 strikeouts already. So watch that.
And I think Terry Francona gave him the vote of confidence now. Now they got rid of Justin Masterson. Justin Masterson was supposed to be their number one. He's still a little raw, but he's still younger. But I think that was a steal for the Cardinals getting him at what they gave up. I didn't think they gave up too much for Justin Masterson. For him to be a 3, maybe even a 4, the guy could eventually turn into a 2. And anybody under Adam Wainwright, you're going to learn something. You're going to be a better pitcher. And then now that Kluber is the number 1 guy, it's giving him this boost, this vote of confidence. It's something that the Indians can build off of, which is I mean, it really hasn't been anything happy for Cleveland in, now they got LeBron James back. Things are starting to turn in Cleveland. You got LeBron James, Johnny Manziel, and Corey Kluber. That is going to be the new Mount Rushmore of Cleveland right there. The first 3 faces.
Kluber, LeBron, Johnny Football, and I don't know. All right,
you got the Lake Erie Monsters in there. We got to get them in there somehow.
We got to move on to the next subject, and we've talked a lot about pitching. Felix Hernandez, Corey Kluber, of course, Clayton Kershaw having a historic season, but he's been doing that the last 4 years. If it finishes in the top 2 in the Cy Young again this year, it'll be his 4th straight year finishing in the top 2. A few years ago, Justin Verlander won the MVP as a pitcher. He's not quite there now, but I'd like to hear each of your thoughts on the MVP award. Should it be exclusively for a hitter, or should a guy as dominant as a Clayton Kershaw or Felix Hernandez that really carries their team be given some MVP votes? It's happened in the past. There's been relief pitchers be the MVP. Usually it takes a slow hitting season. There's not that many hitters that are standing above the rest. If you look across the league, you could talk Giancarlo Stanton, but Cabrera's having an off year. So what are your thoughts on the MVP award? And we'll start with Lorenzo this time.
I think the pitcher should be able to qualify for the MVP award. I read an interesting stat the other day saying that last season, I think it was Kershaw, he faced 926 batters in the whole season. And put that in comparison, the hitter with the most at-bats was only 726. So over the whole season, a pitcher will face more batters than the batters will get at bats. So I just read that stat. I thought it was interesting. So I really think that they should be able to qualify and should be eligible to win the Most Valuable Player award.
And would you nominate either of a pitcher this year?
Kershaw's a stud. He's just so good. He's so dominant. After his no-hitter performance, almost perfect game, his performance is just incredible this season. He's completely dominating every game. If he can end the season with an ERA under 2, that's really commendable, and he really should be able to win the MVP in the NL.
Yeah, I think unless somebody else steps up with a bat, and especially if the Dodgers, and I think they have the best record in the National League right now, if they maintain that, he's certainly the best player on that team, no question. This time we won't let Michael wait till the very end. So, Michael, what are your thoughts on pitchers and MVPs?
Well, yeah, look, the MVP stands for what? Most Valuable Player. Does not matter about position. It's not most valuable position. It's not most valuable primate, despite the fact that those god awful movies that you find in those boxes at Kmart are. No, it's most valuable player. If your most valuable player is your pitcher, by all means, he gets it. Besides, I give all credit to Giancarlo Stanton and all he's doing, or Mike Stanton, or whoever he is this month. But look, I can't give my MVP vote to somebody on a losing team. I just can't do it. You're not the most valuable player to your team if your team is losing. Now, if you're all your team's got, then that's great and everything. But nobody cares about that. They want to see the best guy get it. It's almost like an all-star game or an all-star vote. You're going to vote for the most popular guy. Well, in this case, the most popular guy and the most valuable player in Major League Baseball probably right now is Clayton Kershaw. Give him the damn thing. Give him both, the AL and NL MVP. Just give them all. The guy's immaculate. He is the next Greg Maddux. He is like the next thing to a Greg Maddux. Remember how Greg Maddux was so dominant in the 90s with the Braves, with even the Cubs. When he went back to Chicago, he still had good stuff. He's that dominant now. He's Maddux dominant. This guy could be Koufax dominant here in the next year or two, and Nolan Ryan dominant probably in the next 6 months. He's that good.
Michael's ready to elect him to the Hall of Fame right now, apparently, with that.
Done. He's Clayton Kershaw 2015. He hasn't even retired yet.
Right. He's certainly everything you said, and then the consecutive innings scoreless streak this year to boot. Now we'll go over to Kevin. What are your thoughts on pitchers and MVPs?
I am totally for it because Clayton Kershaw is just the best of the best. I mean, he doesn't really compare to any of the hitters that are in the NL right now. Like Giancarlo Stanton, yeah, he's having a good season, but the Marlins are 8 games behind the Nationals. They have a losing record, and I don't see them really going anywhere this season. So it just makes sense for Clayton Kershaw to get that MVP and win the Cy Young. And for the first pitcher to do it since Justin Verlander in 2011. And the first NL pitcher since Bob Gibson in the 60s.
Wow, that's a stat I did not know. I thought there was a relief pitcher I'm probably thinking of Cy Young.
I was about to say, I thought Jonathan Broxton won something, didn't he? Like a long time ago, didn't Jonathan Broxton win something?
I mean,
Eric Gagne, one of them. One of those guys that used to be a Dodger won something, didn't he?
Dennis Eckersley and Raleigh Fingers won in the 80s, but that's it.
Right.
And that's the AL, but...
Yeah, but not in the NL. Now Bob Gibson is another name that you could throw out there with Kershaw in terms of just dominance and the ability to just own a game and a series of games. Leroy, you've been patient. You like pitchers for MVPs?
Hey, most valuable player includes pitchers, in my opinion. Reason why we're mentioning pitchers right now because Nelson Cruz is cooled off, Mike Trout's cooled off, Abreu's cooled off. So now Felix is in there. So let's put Felix in there. No one
we haven't even mentioned King Felix.
In the national. To be honest, right now, one of the hottest players right now is the guy down there in Houston. Carter, Chris Carter.
Oh yeah.
He's the one making noise. Like for the National League, all you have is Stanton. He's the only one making noise. Tulowitzki, after April, he was not a factor anymore. No one else is grabbing it by his horns. You're talking about Clayton Kershaw. But as much as you talk about Kershaw, you could easily talk about Johnny Cueto.
Ooh.
He's right at two.
Yeah.
Two runs a game. He's got more wins than Clayton. And the thing that will hurt pitchers are you have to get mid-20s, at least 22, 23 victories, and none of the pitchers this year will reach that feat. But like I said, you have to count them out. I mean, count them in there, and they are very valuable. And the problem is, our hitters aren't producing in the second half of the season. So why not? I would say Cueto's got every bit of right for that National League MVP as Kershaw.
I would, my original inclination coming into this conversation was that I just prefer it to be a hitter. I think you got the Cy Young for pitchers and you've got the MVP for hitters. But Lorenzo brought up a good point. If you're involved in over 900 at bats, you're certainly affecting a game over the course of the season more than a hitter. So that's a good counterpoint. I think we got a perfect storm this year. You need to have a pitcher that's just having an ungodly year, and you've got that in Kershaw. And then you need the rest of the field to kind of be even. Nobody really taking control. Obviously, if there was a Miguel Cabrera, somebody winning a Triple Crown in the National League, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation. But Stanton's not quite there. I mean, even a guy like Jonathan Lucroy at the All-Star break, I haven't checked. He had some really big numbers, almost at the top in average, almost at the top in RBI. But and the Brewers are winning. That's kind of a qualification. But the Dodgers are based upon pitching. It's the Dodgers that have the best record, and so I think Kershaw. I think it's Kershaw unless somebody really steps up. And I do appreciate, Leroy, you talking about Chris Carter and the MVP. That's the first I've ever heard those two words in the same sentence. I hear in the same in context of setting records for strikeouts in a single season, which he would have done last year if they didn't bench him at the end. We're ready to release him a couple months ago, but lo and behold, he's starting to hit.
Hey, you know what? It seems like all the hitters are on last place teams. I mean, even Ortiz is hitting the ball like crazy now. His team's not a factor. Abreu's team's not a factor. Right. Trout was probably the only one. And you know what? Right. Trout probably deserves it more than anybody because he's been snubbed the last two seasons by Cabrera. So.
Yeah, I think it probably is going to be Trout in the American League when it's all said and done. So now we'll move to, we usually have a non-baseball topic at the end. We'll kind of stick with baseball, but we'll go to the little folks. I'd say the little men, but there's even a little girl that's been doing well in the Little League World Series. So I don't know if you guys have caught any of it. It's one of those things that if you turn on any ESPN network over the next 2 weeks, there's pretty much going to be a Little League game on. I think it's fun to watch. I think the kids are really good fundamentally. It's fun to see kids listen to their coaches, take instruction, and go out and execute. So it's not like each of you thought on the Little League World Series. Did you play it? Do you like to watch it? Have you watched any this year? And we'll go with Kevin first.
It's definitely something I like to watch. It's not something I watch religiously. But it's exciting to see these kids play and the potential they have, like in the future. Just seeing like Monet Davis on the mound, just throw the way she does and just completely baffle hitters is incredible. And getting all this recognition from MLB players and former players is amazing. Just to see that.
Yeah, I certainly agree, and we had an article on our Reading Between the Seams blog that's part of the Sports Kings Network that there was the Negro League pitcher. She was a girl that pitched in the Negro Leagues in the men's league. Mamie Johnson, I think was her name, and she's been following Monet Davis and her career, and they got to meet up, and it's special to see two ladies that mix it up against the boys, both African American. And really dominating, and it really just brings to light that baseball is more than a bunch of big salaries and big money. It's a game at heart. So let's go to Lorenzo next. What are your thoughts on Little League and the League World Series?
I love the Little League. I played my whole life growing up, and there's a playground by the Little League Park, so I'll take my kids there. We might watch an inning or two of the local Little League. And when I was in college, we used to live next to the Little League Western Regional headquarters out in San Bernardino. And we went to a game one time out there, and we saw this little Asian kid. He was a catcher, and he hit bombs. He hit a 350-foot bomb over the snack bar, over everybody, into the parking lot. And we looked at that kid, and we're like, we're going to come back and see him again. He was a catcher from Huntington Beach. And we came back and saw a few games later. We come out there, that little kid, that little Asian boy that hit bombs was Hank Conger, the starting catcher for the Angels this season. This was back in 2001, 2002, around there, so he was 12 years old then. And to make it even worse, here's a bunch of college guys, a bunch of fraternity guys out at the stadium, and we decided we would spell his name across our chest, Conger. And I even have the shirt. I've even showed it to him at spring training this past season. He thought it was hilarious. But yes, definitely definitely Little League Baseball is awesome, and I'm a big fan of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, when you see the guys grow up, and it's funny because if you watch some of the games, they'll do some retrospectives of players that were stars back then, and then now they used that and had a college scholarship and went out and got a business degree or a law degree. It really sets the discipline in young men and women, and learning to do things the right way that transcends throughout their lives. Leroy, what's your thoughts on the Little League World Series?
I think they need to back those fences up. It's ridiculous how you can stick your head out there and it goes over the fence. There's no way someone can get 3 home runs in a game and a triple. Back the fences up. And for this Monet Davis, no offense, a girl strike you out.
She throws 70 miles per hour. I don't think anybody on this panel can throw 70 miles an hour right now.
I have a daughter and all. I know, and I'm thinking, me as a 42-year-old man, not a 13-year-old kid, I want to bat against her. I want to see if she can strike me out.
Oh, she could. She will own you, boy.
Challenges have been made.
Yeah, I want
from
to see what
46
she really got.
And 70 miles per hour, she's throwing gas. That's so bad. 70 miles per hour.
All I had to do was
Jamie Moyer changeup, man.
Fence. Hey.
No, wait, she's throwing faster than Jamie Moyer.
Whenever you get a chance, if you ever have a radar gun at a stadium, like those little, see how fast you pitch, see how hard you can really throw. Right now, most of us cannot even throw 70 miles per hour. If she's a 13-year-old little girl, I can't right now. I'll be honest, I cannot do that right now.
Yeah, she's throwing 8. I gotta give it to her.
I don't know. She struck out 8 and 2 hits over a complete game.
Hey, I always say she didn't strike me out though.
She would own you, man. She would own you. Michael, what are your thoughts on the Little League World Series?
Well, being a former inhabitant of the state of Pennsylvania and living only about 2.5 hours from Williamsport, I never went there. I tried to stay away from Highway 15 as much as I could, but I would always go past the exit when I would go visit up my grandmother's, who lives about an hour east of Erie, and we'd always have to travel up Interstate 80, and Interstate 80 runs right across Highway 15, and the exit for Williamsport was always right there, and you'd always had home of the Little League World Series right there. 75 years, you got to respect it, but I'm anxious to see if the city of Philadelphia and the city of Chicago both advance today. It would put Monet Davis against Pierce Jones. Say what you want about Monet Davis. I respect all that she's doing, but watch this kid, Pierce Jones. This kid's got RG3 swagger and the game to back it up. I've only ever heard of 2 famous people until the story about Hank Conger earlier today, but I've only heard of 2 famous people ever playing Little League World Series and then going on to do something ridiculous in sports world, and that was Chris Drury, who played in the 1989 Little League World Series, who goes on to have an illustrious career in the NHL with the Buffalo Sabres, New York Rangers, won a Stanley Cup, I think, in Colorado in the 90s, and Danny Almonte, but we all only know Danny Almonte for one thing, and that was cheating. But I really think this Pierce Jones kid, he's like 12 or 13 years old, allegedly. This kid could eventually be a Major League Baseball player. I mean, he really could be. He's got the athleticism. He's got the skill. But most importantly, he and his teammates, that's what I love about this, is they have fun. They look like they're having fun. I went back and watched Bad News Bears this morning before the show, and I don't mean the good one with back in the 70s. I'm talking about the Billy Bob Thornton remake, which was okay. But doing that, it kind of watching the whole Amanda Warlowitz thing, it kind of made me, think back. Oh, Monet Davis is doing that. Basically the exact same concept. That chick was throwing 70 miles an hour. Unfortunately, that actress died in a car wreck in 2010. But, it's going to be interesting if that Chicago-Philadelphia matchup does happen. I think that might be one I TiVo because I'll probably have to work.
Okay, what about Sean Burrows? Nobody mentioned Sean Burrows. He was a stud in Little League. He made it to the show. Let's see, Gary Sheffield was a catcher back from a Tampa team back in the early 80s.
Gary Sheffield, really?
Gary Sheffield, I saw it on ESPN Classic a few years ago, and he was the catcher on the team.
Nice.
So him, Sean Burrows, There's been a few guys that have been in the Little League World Series have actually gone on to a professional career in some type of sport. But yeah, they are out there.
Yeah, they had David Nilsson the other day. I think he played for Australia. I was watching the Australia game yesterday, and they cited Nilsson, I believe, and Kyle Peterson also. I think he was covering the game. I don't think Peterson played. There's like
Matt Castle's another guy too. Matt Castle, he's a Northridge kid. Yeah, he the League World Series when they were the Northridge boys back in '94 after the earthquake, which woke me up from sleep that day. But yeah, he's another guy.
It is certainly fun to watch them play, and they do get enjoyment. There's just that pure aspect of 12-year-olds. They're not quite teenage boys yet, getting into trouble, but they're old enough to kind of hold their own and represent. And it's great. And I'll just give one shout out to our Houston team that's representing from Pearland. They're a strong contender too. So watch them. They're my pick to win it all. Well, I want to thank our panel of guests today, Kevin, Leroy, Lorenzo, and Michael. We had a really great discussion. It's great to have 5 people here to talk baseball. We'll certainly be doing it hopefully every week the rest of the season. But until then, we will sign off for now and see you guys next time on Diamond King.